Welcome back to the most educational podcast on the platform. This is a podcast where we talk all things school. My name is Gauruv Virk, and this is I'm Doing Well. That's right, the most educational podcast around town. Why is it the most educational podcast? It's because all we talk about here is school. That's right. I'm not too cool for school, as people say, but I am just cool enough to wear a hat indoors. Can I just say two things? If you wear a hat indoors, you're stupid. Second thing, I forgot how big, and you probably forgot too, forgot how big my ears are. Look at those things, huh? They're still there. I know, they've been covered up for, what, a year now? But they're still there. So Garb, you said it's stupid to wear a hat indoors. Yeah, I stand by that. Actually, I sit by that. My hair just, it was doing weird stuff today. And I've never been one to, care too much about the appearance of myself. But sometimes, you just got to do it. Also, I bought hats. I don't know if I'm becoming a hat guy. Back when I was in middle school, I really wanted to be a hat guy, but I realized I didn't have the head shape for it. And also I bought those baseball hats that like players wear, where it's not like adjustable in the back. It's like a fitted cap. And those are like a circular shape, but I have like a narrow head, I got this pin head, and they just look weird. There's like this gap right here and there. So like, if I do wear hats, I have to wear dad hats, or like these kind of hats, or else it just looks weird. So I forgot, now that I'm a hat wearer, I'm very deep in this community now, by the way. I'm head deep. Which for some people is a lot, for some people it's not. Think about that joke. Head deep means different things for different people. But sometimes that's just enough. Sometimes, okay. But yeah, I forgot. But now that I'm head deep into this community, I forgot my ears exist. I forgot they're there, But it's something I have to deal with, If I want to be a strong member of this burgeoning community. Is that the word? Burgeoning? That means like on the come up, right? The rise. Yeah, I'm a member of this strong burgeoning community. But I just want to address the hat straight away. It's the Jamestown Jammers. That's this logo. It's a minor league team that was in existence from 1994 to 2014. That's right. They had a 20-year stint. They were based in Jamestown, New York. I don't know why, the team was discontinued. It wasn't renewed for a 21st season. But in 2015, we no longer saw the Jamestown Jammers. But I have a Jamestown Jammers hat that I bought last month. They still sell their stuff, which is weird, because where do the proceeds go? If I'm buying, are the Jamestown Jammers, parents still alive? Mama and Papa Grape? Do they get the proceeds? I don't know. I mean, they lost their son at 20 years. I'm guessing the parents are still alive, And so that's tragic. Well, no, it's great. Me buying this hat really contributed to them, and I want to support them in their, these past 7 years they've been grieving, and I want to put out, a helping hand, lend a helping hand. So I'm just doing my little part on this great old sphere that we call Earth. But like I said, this is the most educational podcast of time, because all I talk about is school, right? Well, now, because I'm back in school. So what do I have to say about school, huh? Well, what can I say about school, without getting certain people, getting me in trouble? It's like, wait, who would get you in trouble? Yes. Who would get me in trouble? The World Health Organization? No. Can you imagine? You get in trouble, they come knocking on your door, you're like, who is it? And they're like, yes. No. Who's going to get me in trouble for the things I say, though? No one. There's, let's beat around the bush, huh? Let's foreplay for a minute. When you talk to your friends about school, you can kind of just let that shit rip, What were those, like a top There used to be this like game, right? Was it Bakugan, where you like shoot that shit onto the table and then it spins? That was Bakugan, right? But you gotta like rip that shit like that, or maybe just a top. You remember tops? Like tops, I feel like they were always in like birthday party goodie bags and stuff like that. But you get them from Party City, like 25 in a pack or whatever. But tops, you spin that, but sometimes they have a string, so you rip that string and they, you know, spin on the table. So when you talk to your friends, you let that shit rip. You play some Bakugan, but verbal Bakugan, and the opponent is your professors. Well, I feel like in some settings you can't just let that shit rip, right? Like this setting, I know, like not too many people listen to this, yeah, but that still doesn't give, I feel like, permission for me to say certain things about certain people, right? And so it's like, how much can I say, right? I do want to, like, all the stuff I have to say, I feel like it's really explicit, right? But I could set the scene. I could tell you certain things around what I want to say, which is that I'm in a class. It's like my senior design project for engineering. We all have to do it because they're like, well, we want to make you industry ready. And so they make you do this one project at the end of your schooling so that they can, tell employers, see, we did prepare them for you. And it's like, well, what about the whole 4 years before that? And they're like, well, that's all rectified by this one project they have to do. Why don't you just make them like work on this stuff the whole 4 years? No, I don't think I want to do that. How about we just do it once at the very end and they're not prepared for it at all, but they'll struggle through it. A curve will take over, Curves kind of smooth out the edges, You ever like make a cake? I haven't. I've never made a cake. I was born with one. Check out that dumper. Anyways, no, I'm built like a pencil, but like a pencil that broke in half. So it's like flat where it broke. But I said I have a pinhead. But it's not even a pinhead. It's more like the eraser on a pencil. Yeah. Do I have one? Is this it? Oh yeah, I'm built like this. This is me. And then this, oh God. This is a baseball hat. Right there. That's me. Not like, what's the opposite of personified? Like, if you talk about a pencil, like a person, well, no. I pencilified myself. It wasn't quite, I didn't personify the pencil, I pencilified myself. But I don't remember, what was I talking about? I was talking about like the senior project, right? So the senior project, it's something, we all got to work on, right? Us engineers, we come together and we're like, let's finish strong. And then we all in sweet harmony work on this thing. We all struggle. Oh, I was talking about, making a cake. I don't know if you ever made a cake. I've never made a cake, but when they show, you probably watch like cake shows, like Ace of Cakes or Cake Boss, starring Buddy and gang, and then Ace of Cakes starring Duff and gang. And Duff has a Jeff spelled with a G in his group, so I'm weary of that crowd. Anyways, when they make those cakes, they always make these grand like sculptures and these shapes with their cakes, and you always see it. Like they waste a shit ton of cake because they got to shape these things and like round out these edges. But they always start by putting like a bunch of layers on there, like on this PVC pipe, and then they start like cutting away at the edges and it becomes real like rounded. So that's like, I don't know why I brought up this analogy, but it's, I was saying, I'm going to provide, these layers of cake and then, we're going to cut away at it, kind of get more of a shape. Yeah, I don't know why I brought up this analogy, but, it's because maybe I was talking about being more well-rounded. I don't know. Yeah, all these students, we come in as these giant sheets of cake, these layered sheet cakes, and then they think, yeah, we're going to like cut away at edges for like 6 months and then boom, that's a full cake. And I'm like, but you didn't put fondue and like all the like designs and stuff on it. And they're like, well, I mean, we only have so much time. I'm like, you could have started making the cake earlier. And they're like, well, we wanted to learn the theory of like spoons and forks. And I'm like, not even cakes? They're like, well, no, we just want to learn all this stuff around the cake. And I'm like, then when do you learn about the cake? And they're like, well, you don't. You just make it one day. And I'm like, how the fuck does that make sense? And they're like, why is stuff supposed to make sense? We're making cake, not sense. And I'm like, what? Anyways, there's a thing in the senior project. There's all this documentation online. You know, like every project we do, there's always this like disclaimer, or there's always this thing at the bottom, and it says, start early. You're gonna have to use time outside of class, because even if you're the most perfect and just on the ball, like killer in this class. Like, even if you've taken this class 15 times and you know the ins and outs, you cannot only use class time to get this stuff done. Class time is literally 3 hours a week. That's all the time you get to do these giant labs. So it's obvious, but they put these disclaimers, these little notices at the bottom of every assignment that says, hey, plan ahead, start well in advance, and talk to your group and, make a plan. Because if you don't, you're not going to get this shit done. And then they always add this extra part, which is like, this is okay that this is happening because this is how the real world is. That's what they always say. They're like, all this planning and all this stuff you have to do on your own, it's really okay because this is the real world. And I'm like, this is not the real world. Real world. This is poor planning. This is PP right here. That's why it's piss poor. Piss poor and poor planning. They're the same thing. They're both PP, I could go somewhere else with that, but I don't want to. It's weird. There's this thing that I've noticed. This professor in this class. See, now this is where we got to be careful. None of this will probably have any effect, even if I said the worst things possible, but we got to be careful now, But the professor for this class, like, I don't know. I don't get what he does. And we're now, 2 weeks in? He doesn't. I don't really get, what does he do? So because we have one class period, we have a lecture and a 3-hour lab. And the lecture, now I found out that this is how the lecture works. You get to lecture, and you just meet with your challenge group. That's what they're called, challenge group. It's you and like 4 other people. So you meet in this group of 5, and then for like 20 minutes, you got to quickly pull up Canvas and look at these 5 questions that they just posted. And you got to, this is, I think, the best thing to do, is what I found in the first week. Start a Google Doc with all 5 questions, and just start writing stuff under all 5 questions. Because after about 15 minutes, the professor says, all right, I'm going to walk around and I'm going to ask one person in your group these questions. And you're like, okay, well, because we just got these questions and we don't know anything about this subject material, he'll probably let us have our notes open that we compiled. But I'll use our example or I'll use our story as the example. He gets to our group and says, all right, you guys ready? And we're like, nope. And he goes, ha. And I'm like, that's all you got, man? That's all you can do? You can just laugh at us? Notice how we're not laughing? You're not laughing with us, bud. You're laughing at us. Or next to us. And that could be arguably worse. Like if you're at a funeral, someone laughing at you, you could be like, they're an asshole. But someone laughing next to you at a funeral, they just think the whole thing is funny. And it's like, fuck you. It's worse that it's not personal. If it was personal, I'd be like, that's fine. Like, you're laughing at me at a funeral, I'm crying. Yeah, maybe I look like a bitch right now. But like, if you're laughing at the whole funeral, oh, hey, F you, buddy. Okay? So he's just laughing at us, which isn't as bad as laughing around us. But he's definitely, the whole point I want to get across is he's not laughing with us. Because this shit is not a joke. Okay? What are we going to laugh at? So he says, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He points to each of us. 1 through 5. He says, that's your number. I'm going to go ahead and get a random number generator. He pulls out his phone, presses one button, and he goes, 2. I was number 3. The girl to my left, she was number 2. I was like, oh, thank God. So he just starts and he goes, question 1. He asks her the question. And did I already say this? But like the first thing he says, oh yeah, I missed a part. Sorry. He shows up and he says, are you guys ready? We go, no. He laughs near us. And then he says, okay, and go ahead. You can't look at any of your notes, so put your laptops away. I was like, what the I didn't say it out loud, but in my head, I was like, what the fuck? What? What's up, bro? You just want me to raw dog this real quick? Damn. That's fucked up. That's the equivalent of someone like showing up and being like, all right, put your condoms away. I'm like, what? That was the only thing that was going to keep me safe. I'm going to walk out the other end with a disease. So he's like, put your protection away. I was like, what the fuck? Did you not pass health and safety in 9th grade, you psychopath? Put our protection away. I am pretty sure I can report him to HR for that. HR. That implies that anyone gives a fuck about us. No one gives a fuck about students. Because they don't have to. No one has to give a fuck about students. And students don't really have to worry about no one giving a fuck about them because they're only there for 4 years. 5 years? 4 or 5 years? Some people 3 years. I don't know what their deal is. But like, I've talked about this, right? Like, no problems with our broken ass school system are going to be fixed because no one has to give a shit for that long. Like, in a year, all these problems that are like the bane of my existence right now, I won't give a fuck about. So they'll never be fixed because there's no incentive to fix them. There's just, you struggle and then just get through that shit, you know? There's no payoff to try to fix this. Educating the masses, like how shitty it is right now, there's no, like, I think it's pretty bad, but like, no one's gonna fix it. Unless, like, the requirements for getting a Boy Scout Eagle Award get harder and some Boy Scout takes us on, this shit will never be fixed, you know? Because there's no, who's gonna fix it? It's only gonna benefit students. And so students are the only ones that would care about it if fixing it would benefit them. And students are already so busy with school, why the fuck are they gonna care about improving the system? Yeah? I don't know. I could talk about this shit forever because I think it's stupid. But I don't even know, how did I get here, you know? He asked her these questions, but you know, it's okay because he says if you get stuck, you can call on one of your, you can phone a friend, one of your group mates, they can do it. So like question 4, I think she got a little stumped on. I think she could have done it, but she was like, let's just be safe, call on someone. So she calls on, number 5, and then he starts answering, and she it clicks a little more. She's like, oh, right. So then he gets a little stumped, and she's like, oh, it's this, and the professor goes, no, it's him now. You had your chance. I was like, oh, fuck you, bro. This is not how real life works. What kind of fucked up system is this? Like, okay, you guys have 15 minutes to prepare for this, and then put all those notes about this brand new subject, put that shit away, and then I'm only going to ask you. This is such a weird, like, this would only, if you explain this in the real world, like this system of doing things, you'd be like, why? What are you doing? It's like someone being like, cross the street, and you're like, that's easy enough. And they're like, but tie your legs to your arms and then chop off the other arm. Like, tie both your legs to one of your arms and then chop off the other arm. And then go walk across the street as you're, like, bleeding out. And you're like, what? That's not, why? Why can't I just cross the street? And they're like, I don't know. Maybe you'll think twice before you cross the street next time. I'm like, that doesn't, who's this helping? And they're like, no one. And I'm like, so why do I have to do it? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, so you don't know either. See, we're both now at the same spot where we're like, why the fuck do we have to do this? But he's like, she's like, oh, I got this. And then he's like, nope, shut the fuck up. Don't you shut up. I'll get to you. He's going to do this one. Then I'm coming back for you. How about you spend this time thinking about not fucking up the next question? Okay? So he does that, and he comes back to her. She nails the last question, and I couldn't help but think, man, I really would have failed our group because, I mean, I wrote the answers to 2 of the 5 questions, but right when you said laptops away, I forgot all that shit. I didn't give up because I didn't really know like how intense it was gonna be. But now I know. Like, so here's the thing. Now going forward, I know exactly how to approach this thing. So if I get called, I'm ready. Like, you gotta like the amount you have to review. Like you know where to put your time. Like this is how much I'll spend preparing. This is how much time I'll spend like just single, you know, just me reading it, trying to get it in my head, and then know who's comfortable with which parts in case I need to call on someone. But like I didn't really know what to think going into this, or what I didn't know what to expect going into this. So I after he finished with our group, I couldn't help but think. I even told our group, I was like, "Thank God he didn't call me. I wouldn't have done that well." That was a nice way of saying, thank God he didn't call on me because I would have failed the fuck out of our group. I couldn't do that. Like, because who has to do that? Like I said, there's no reason you have to do that shit ever. But that's the thing. He does this challenge problem, this challenge group thing. He goes around to each group. He reads off a piece of paper and says, do you know this thing? And then he watches us flounder. And he does that with like, what, 10, 15 groups? And then he prances off, to his office somewhere. And that's it. Because then we have a 3-hour lab that the TAs run. The TAs field all our questions, and they answer all our questions online, and we only emailed them. So besides that, like 1 hour where he kind of just fucks with us, I don't know what he does. And so I'm like, what the fuck? And the thing I've found about school is like a lot of these professors, the school is just, this is what I told my mom the other day. I was like, it feels like school is like their mattress firm, And then their research is money laundering. So I don't know if you know about this phenomenon, but a lot of mattress firms in the world are just money laundering operations. And their whole front is that they're a mattress firm. Like they sell mattresses. So I'm like, a professor's whole front is like being a professor. Like being a professor is their mattress firm just so they can do their own research or launder money. You get what I'm saying? Like no one gives a fuck about selling mattresses the same way a professor doesn't give a fuck about teaching students because that's not why he's there. He's there to launder money or, do his research. And so I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know. Once again, I have to restate. In a mere, half year even from now, I won't have to give a fuck about this. So I just have to kind of shut up, put my head down and like go through this shit and then not have to worry about it ever again. And then let the next round of people get fucked. I mean, because that's how you churn out a bunch of educated people, right? Through a kind of it's like when you have to do something. Like you ever do a big project and there gets to be a point where you just, whatever you have, actually, yeah, let's take school for example. You ever have a school project and there gets to be a point, it's like the night before, where you're like, whatever I really have, let's refine this as much as we can and then just send it. That's kind of what happened with school. We're like, how do we educate the entire world? And they're like, we have this school system. They're like, that's pretty broken. And they're like, right. And they're like, can you fix it up a little bit? They're like, I guess so. And they're like, okay, do whatever you can and then send it to us. And then this sent product is what we've been using. But it's like, you can't go back and fix it because it's like, then you would have to shut it down for a little bit and like really think about it. But that's the thing. We don't have time to stop and think about things and make them better. We just have to keep doing them. So yeah. School's gnarly. It's weird. And they keep saying, I hate also, like I was saying, that little disclaimer they keep putting. They're like, this will prepare you for the real world. I'm like, that's a lame excuse to be like, I don't want to do my job. Like, the professor's like, we're really, you're going to have to do this. I'm not going to really teach you, so figure this out on your own. And we're like, that seems kind of stupid, right? And he's like, well, it's the real world. And I'm like, how the fuck do you know the real world's like? You were a student and now you're a professor. Where the fuck is your real world experience? This thing you're preparing us for, you don't even know shit about it. That's like a fucking hockey coach, like telling a basketball team what, like, how to play. And I'm like, have you done this? He's like, well, no, I read a lot about sports, and I've never played your sport, but like I know about sports. So, you know, if there's a foul, just fist fight him. And I'm like, you know, that doesn't fly in basketball like it does in hockey, right? You realize there's a difference? And he's like, no, it's transferable. And you're like, what the fuck? No wonder you played hockey. It's self-evident that you were hit in the head a few too many times. Jackass. But yeah. I mean, school's gotta be the least inspiring place ever, right? Who the fuck goes to school and is like, I love this? What? That's like your parents beating you and then you being like, I love them more and more every day. I'm like, you just keep getting bruised up. What do you mean you love them? That's an abusive relationship. What do you mean you love them? Holy shit, that's Stockholm Syndrome, right? I think I've already made that joke. That's students that like school. It's like a version of Stockholm Syndrome. Like when they graduate and they're like super, they love talking about their alma mater. I'm like, did you fall in love with your captor? What the fuck is wrong with you? Snap out of it. So yeah, but that's my thing. I see tool as a school. No, I see I see school as a tool. And it's weird. I've only really truly felt that way since starting college. And I think it's because, you know, when you're growing up, like elementary school, all you think about is middle school. Middle school, all you think about is high school. High school, all you think about is, let me get these good grades, do all these extracurriculars so I can get into a good college. And then college, you're like, oh, well, I'm not going to school after this. It's just the real world. So you start thinking, well, what is all this shit going to prepare me for the real world? And you're like, no, it's not. And you're like, well, wait until you get to your last year. Then we're going to do this thing. I'm like, no, don't. You mean the senior project? They're like, yeah. I'm like, that doesn't. Shut up. No, it doesn't. The professor's like he's like the biggest con man ever. He's like, I'm so experienced in this, and I'm like, right. Yeah, okay, what is it? It's like a coach that never played the game. So he's real theory based. You know what professors are? Professors are fantasy league players. You know those dudes that play fantasy and like they dedicate their whole life to it? That's what professors are. Motherfuckers have never stepped a foot on the field, and yet they're like, this is going to perform the best. I'm like, how do you know? Because I watch a lot of it. Oh, word? Okay, cool. Yeah. I didn't know you could get secondhand fucking coaching. They treat this shit like it's weed. It's like, if I get close enough and I get a whiff of it, I'll get high. I'm like, that's not how it works. You gotta smoke that shit yourself. Sports and school are not like weed. You cannot get a secondhand effect of it, you know? You gotta go and play the game yourself, you know? Roll the dice. So yeah, school's real fun, right? and you know what's funny? This is, I don't know if it's fun. This is, by the way, what I'm saying right now, this is a censored version of this whole thing. I have so many more things I wish I could say, you know? But then there's the other class, you know? So I'm taking that class, and then I got this other class. And it's twice a week. But it was only once this last week, because the second one got canceled. Like, he said, I'll record a lecture in my off time, and then I'll post it. But, like, I can't make our usual class time. And I was like, oh, I wonder, like, what's up with that? Like, is there someone, like, did he get COVID? And that's why he can't come in? Is that what's up? But no, I found out he had to attend a funeral. And I thought that was so funny. Because what it took for class to be remote was someone dying. And that's kind of poetic if you think about it. Like, I'm sure whoever's funeral he went to, maybe they died of COVID, maybe they didn't. But it's funny to me that it took someone to die for us to have our class remote. Like I told you last week, this class is fully ready to just be remote. Like, all he has to do is be like, it's remote, and it's ready because he records the sessions and he posts them. And people, like, if you are feeling sick or whatever and you can't come to class, all you do is email him, and then boom, you just attend the Zoom call that he has set up that runs at the same time as the class. So we're like, the class can fully be remote. And so I thought it was, I don't know, I thought it was real poetic that the reason this class had to be remote for the second lecture this week was that someone died. Because if someone in our class dies of COVID, I don't think that's a high chance, but if someone dies of COVID, that will cause it to be remote too. So I thought there's something poetic about that. That maybe that person didn't die of COVID, but they died, and that's what it took for this class to be remote. I thought that was interesting. I think it's stupid. I don't know. I gotta get all dolled up. I gotta get all dolled. That's why I bought hats. I don't want to get dolled up. I'm gonna start wearing this shit. And people are gonna be like, oh my god, is that the Jamestown Jammers? I'm like, it is. No way. You grew up in New York? They're like, no, I know the parents and they're really struggling, so I donate to them. I'm like, no way. I actually supported them by buying the hat. That's so cool. But yeah, I gotta get all dolled up to go to this bullshit for, like, what is it? 100 minutes? Is that how long it is? I don't know. 100 minutes too long, I tell you that much. There's something so, like, I don't know if it's insulting, but there's something so, like, annoying about this class fully being able to just be online. Like, someone just has to be like, it's online, and then it is. It's good. But yeah, school's fun. I'm having a blast. Making memes. I've said this. Davis is really great. Like, the area and everything, like, it's real fun to be in. Like, during the summer, when I would just work and then I would, like, go on walks and stuff, like, that was cool. It was cool to, like, live in Davis. I don't think I would want to live here long term because there's really not that much here. But, like, it's cool just to exist here for a while. But, like, the school part of it really makes me hate this place. Like, Davis is great, except Davis. UC Davis. And actually, no, here's the thing. UC Davis is great. I have to say, I need to amend my take. I like, I say things about Davis, but it's like, really, I mean, it's the engineering program that I speak for. Like, anything I say is really about that. Like, I can't really speak for any other program. So that's why it's weird when someone's like, I went to XYZ college. And then everyone's like, wow, XYZ college, that's amazing. I'm like, but once you get down to the major, like, it's a completely different experience. So when people are like, I went to Davis, and they're like, no way, like, I went to Davis. Or like, oh my god, I want to go to Davis. I'm like, but the Davis you went to or you want to go to is not the same Davis as me. That could be a time thing, but more probably accurately, it's going to be because of a major thing. Like, if you go for anything other than engineering, and then specifically electrical engineering, we're not going to have the same college experience. And then, each person is different. And so then that's all. So I don't know. I find people compare, like, colleges one for one a lot. And I'm like, you can't, I hate to use the age-old adage, but it's comparing apples to oranges, That's not as a juicy a comparison as you think it is. And why aren't you guys using grapes? You got something against grapes? I'm a big fan of grapes. But, it's funny because some people are like, it'll only get easier. I'm like, why do you say that? They're like, I don't know. Just trying to make me and you feel better, honestly. I'm like, yeah. I don't know. I think it'll hopefully. I think more real. This is kind of dark. I think it'll be over before it needs to get better, right? Like, no, that doesn't make any sense. But like, I don't think you should be like, I shouldn't be bothering myself with thinking, when is this gonna get better? I should just be focusing on like, when is this shit gonna be over? Like, just get to the end. It's you know what? It's just what I was talking about earlier. I'm gonna be done soon, so don't worry about making this better or whatever. Just focus on being done with it because then it's not your issue. You know? Like, if you get like a mosquito bite, I don't know why I'm going back to the mosquito bite. I talked about this a few weeks ago, but we're going to use mosquito bites. If you get a mosquito bite, you're not going to dedicate your life to like biology and then try to figure out like, okay, how do we prevent mosquito bites? And when you get a mosquito bite, how are we going to like immediately, you know, eliminate or like annihilate the effects of it? You're just going to wait a couple days for that shit to go away. It's the same thing with college. College and school is just a mosquito bite. There's no point in figuring out how do we make this thing not suck. Just wait long enough and it'll go away. I think I just solved it. I think I came up with the perfect analogy. School is just a mosquito bite. Wait for that shit to go away. Because it'll be over before it needs to be better. That's really what I was trying to get to. Thank you, mosquitoes. I know you guys suck, but you really came in handy here. So yeah, I just solved school, and I think this goes ahead and reinforces the first thing I said in this podcast, which was this is the most educational podcast on the platform. So I think I did stick to my guns, didn't I? Yeah. Yeah. The past two podcasts you guys have been listening to, I want to say thank you so much. That's cool. The numbers have been higher. I think, and I don't want to like jinx anything, but like my best assessment of it is like now we're all back in school and back to the mundane, just bullshit of everyday life and routine. So I think, it's easier just to throw on some guy talking about nothing for 45 minutes. Whereas like in summer, like I found near the end of summer, like September, August, September, like the podcast numbers were slightly lower because I think people were just trying to enjoy their life. And who wants to listen to a loser inside their room talk about, Richard Sporting Goods for 45 minutes? So the etymology of the word, the D word. So I think now that, people's lives suck, I think they're more open to listening to me. So I just want to say thank you. I want to say, yeah, makes sense. I don't know. I don't know why people are listening to this, but people are, a few more people are listening to this, so I want to say thank you for that. And I think we have about 7 more minutes. And 7 minutes is such a weird, like, spot, because I can't introduce a new topic. Like, I haven't really referred to my phone much, because I find, like, there is so much going on in my life right now that really I can talk about that I don't really need to pull from these, like, weird ideas. So I'm compiling this, like, big list of topics that I have. So I have a bunch of stuff I could talk about, but I don't really refer to it because like real life is happening. So, what's the point? But what else is going on in life? I mean, this is a real busy week coming up. Really, once I get through this week, hopefully I'll have more time, but that's what I say every week, right? So, I haven't posted on YouTube today will mark 2 weeks since I haven't posted on YouTube. I have 3 videos like fully recorded and like I'm working on. So I have stuff. It's just what I need is time. And this school's a real time whore, just takes all of it from me. I'm like, you gotta share. And they're like, fuck you. I'm like, oh, fuck me, fuck you. And then we don't get anywhere. We just kind of like bicker and then we go on with our day. And I'm like, I need something from you. And they're like, yeah, and I have the thing you need. I'm like, fine. Then we'll keep doing this for a few more months. And then when I get what I need and you give it to me, this will be done. Okay? And then we can say fuck off to each other for good. Yeah. I've compared college to a lot of things. I've compared it to like the parents that beat you, and then I've compared it to mosquito bites. But now I'm comparing it to like a I think I already said this earlier actually, a toxic relationship where it's like you both know, hey, we need to get out of this, but it's like we still need something from each other. I'm like, fuck you entirely, and they're like, yeah, but you're not gonna break up with me, are you? I'm like, yeah, I'm not. Damn it. So, we're just gonna keep, having. I have so many like terrible things I can say, like not like bad things, but like inappropriate things that will like further this analogy. You know what? Fuck it. Let's do one. I was gonna say like, we're just gonna keep having like angry uh, just angry sex, but it's apparently angry sex is like the best because there's so much passion in it. So like it's gonna be a fiery last few months, full of just hatred, but pure passion as we fuck each other. All because I need a piece of paper to show the world that I know a certain amount of things. Oh, you know what? Let's take the last 4 minutes. I want to talk about this. People that put like PhD or like their level of schooling in their social media bios, you're a loser. You're a straight up fool. You're an idiot. You look like a Dumbo. I'm not talking about the big-eared elephant. I'm like, you look stupid, man. Who gives a fuck if you have a PhD? What does that mean? Does that make you more fun to talk to? Probably not. No, you're probably going to be annoying as shit. People that put like PhD in their Instagram bio, I'm like, you might as well put like foodie in your Instagram profile. You both suck. And like me having that information doesn't change anything. It just makes me know to avoid certain topics. Like foodies, I'm like, okay, don't bring up fun places to eat because then they'll just ride that conversation forever. The same way like PhDs don't talk about anything education because then they'll be like, oh, when I was in school for 37 years. And I'm like, shut up. I know this is what you did with your entire life, but can you talk about something else, please? And you're like, well, I don't know anything else. I'm like, yeah, so you realize now why I don't want to hang out with you? But then I'm okay if you're a closeted PhD, if you're not like out to the world. But like if you're an out PhD to where you put it in your bio, fuck you. Oh, it's kind of I can talk more about this later, but it's the same kind of thing as people that use height as their personality. I don't really, it just rubs me the wrong way when people use height as a personality trait. Like I remember there was a guy I grew up with and he was pretty tall and he would use people's like heads as an armrest. And I was like, get another bit, man. Like it's not fun. And he would do the shit like, oh, how's the ground down there? I'm like, dude, you're tall. You're gonna die sooner because like there's so much of you and like your body just is gonna give up. Okay. You know that, right? Tall people die quicker. And it's the same thing as height. Anyone that uses height and a level of education as a personality trait, you're a loser. I don't care if you don't agree with me. I think you're a loser. Whenever someone's like, oh, this person has a PhD, I'm like, cool, awesome, good for them. But why does that affect my life? I don't know. They're really, they went to school for a while. They're like really smart. I'm like, they're really smart. What does smart mean? Can we define smart? Does knowing a lot about a thing make you smart? Well, then I'll just become like an expert on like pudding. I'll get a fucking PhD in pudding. And it'll be a PhD. And then people will be like, he has a PhD. And as long as they don't ask in what, guess what? I have a PhD. Actually, even if they ask in what, and someone's like, oh, pudding. And it's like, oh, what was their specialty? And they're like, I think it was tapioca. Guess what? I still have a fucking PhD. Anyways. School's great. It's going well. And you heard it here first from the most educational podcast on the platform. Thank you for listening. I don't know if I'll have a YouTube video up by the next time I talk at you on this podcast, but I hope I do. So look out for that YouTube video on the main channel. And also, this is dope. TMG, Tiny Meat Gang, they made a new podcast. It's called The Trillionaire Mindset. and I commented on it because I was like, oh, this is dope. And boom, I got a pinned comment. So I don't know. If you ask me, that's worth more than a PhD. All right. I'll talk at you next week. Thank you for listening. Bye.